Beloved, lift your heart in expectation. Tonight is not an ordinary night. There are moments in the spirit where heaven leans toward the earth and men access answers that have delayed for years. Tonight, by the mercy of God, is such a moment. Wherever you are, I want you to prepare your spirit, because the God who hears, the God who sees, and the God who answers is visiting you. Every question that has weighed on your heart, every silent pain, every battle that has stolen your peace, tonight the Lord brings an answer. There is a stirring in the realm of the spirit. Chains are loosening, clouds are shifting. The atmosphere is aligning with God's purpose for your life. You are not here by accident. Heaven scheduled your presence for this encounter. As you open your mouth in prayer, may your words become incense rising before the throne of God. And as that incense rises, may answers, clear, undeniable, supernatural, begin to descend upon you. Tonight, God will speak. Tonight, God will reveal. Tonight, God will answer. Prepare your heart. Your night of divine visitation has come. When we say God is not silent, it is not a poetic statement. It is a spiritual reality woven into the fabric of his relationship with his children. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people believe that when God is not speaking in the way they expect, he is ignoring them or withholding answers. But God's silence is never a sign of abandonment. His silence is communication. His silence is preparation. His silence is alignment. There are moments when heaven seems quiet because God is working behind the scenes, arranging people, circumstances, and timings that your eyes cannot yet see. When God appears silent, he is building an answer so complete, so perfect, and so timely that when it arrives, you will understand why he did not respond earlier. God has never been a silent God. From Genesis to Revelation, he reveals himself as one who speaks, one who instructs, one who guides, one who reveals secrets to those who seek him. He speaks through his word, through his spirit, through dreams, through counsel, through signs, through peace, through a holy restlessness, and sometimes through his silence. Each of these channels carries the weight of his intention. The issue is never that God has stopped speaking. The issue is that we often expect him to speak only through one method. We confine him to the image of our preference, forgetting that he is too vast to be limited by our expectations. Tonight, the voice of God is breaking through every wall of confusion that has kept you stagnant. There are seasons where God allows you to walk through silence so that your discernment matures. If God answered immediately every time you prayed, you would never learn endurance, patience, and trust. You would worship answers instead of worshiping him. But when you walk through spiritually silent seasons, your sensitivity sharpens. You begin to distinguish the whisper of God from the noise of your emotions. You start to crave his presence more deeply. You learn to value divine direction. Silence becomes the training ground that shapes your spiritual hearing. And yet, even in those seasons, God is not absent. He is watching. He is guiding. He is whispering instructions in ways you may not yet perceive. He is orchestrating deliverance while you are still praying. He is preparing breakthroughs while you are still wondering if he heard you. God does not need to speak audibly to be active. The proof of his involvement is the peace he gives you, the strength you suddenly find, the protection you experience without realizing it, the doors that begin to open, the opportunities that appear at the edge of exhaustion. Every one of these is God speaking. Tonight, however, is different. Tonight is not a night of quiet dealings or silent training. Tonight is a night of divine answers. When heaven decides to respond, nothing can stop it. No delay, no warfare, no confusion, no fear, no doubt. Tonight, the clouds over your destiny are lifting. Tonight, the questions that have tormented your mind will encounter the voice of God. Tonight, every prayer that has risen like incense before the throne will receive a manifested response. When God answers, he does not reply like men. His answers carry power. His answers shift seasons. His answers rewrite stories. His answers restore what was lost. His answers bring healing, clarity, direction, breakthrough, and peace. His answers silence the voice of the enemy and amplify the voice of purpose. Tonight, you are stepping into an atmosphere where God speaks clearly, where God reveals his will, where God confirms his promises. The silence you once feared is ending. God is not just going to speak, he is going to make his answer undeniable, unshakable, and unforgettable. Tonight, the God who has never been silent will reveal that he has always been speaking, and now he will speak in a way you cannot miss. There comes a point in every believer's journey where human strength reaches its limit. You try everything you know, every strategy, every connection, every idea, and yet the answers you seek remain hidden. It is in these moments that you discover a profound spiritual truth. Divine answers often come when human effort can no longer carry you. God waits for the moment when the noise of your striving becomes silent, when the weight of your limitations becomes clear, and when your heart becomes humble enough to receive help from a realm beyond your own ability. It is not that God delights in watching you struggle. Rather, he knows that as long as you are still depending on your own strength, you will misinterpret his answer as the result of your effort instead of the expression of his mercy. When you reach the end of your strength, you enter the beginning of God's supernatural intervention. Every time you ran out of ideas, every time you felt exhausted, every time you carried burdens too heavy for human shoulders, those were the moments heaven was waiting for. The end of your strength is not failure, it is transition. It is the place where you shift from your ability to God's ability. The realm of the spirit is most active, where human ability becomes insufficient. Some of the greatest answers that have ever manifested in the lives of God's people came at their weakest hour. Deliverance often arrives when your prayers lack eloquence but overflow with sincerity. Breakthrough appears at the moment where desperation meets surrender. Human strength has a limit. Divine strength does not. Human wisdom reaches a boundary. Divine wisdom is infinite. Human solutions run out. Divine solutions are without measure. God does not need your strength to give you an answer. He needs your surrender. When the heart finally says, Lord, I have reached my end, heaven replies, now watch what I can do. It is in that sacred point of surrender that the supernatural dimension opens. Answers that once looked impossible suddenly become accessible. Paths that seemed locked begin to clear. Doors that remained closed for years swing open in moments. God steps into the space your strength could not feel. Tonight is one of those nights where God meets you at the end of yourself. Everything you tried to fix, everything you wrestled to understand, everything you carried in silence, he is stepping into it. Divine answers are not always loud. Sometimes they come as peace, as conviction, as direction, as comfort, as the removal of a burden you carried for years. Other times they come as sudden intervention, swift, undeniable, miraculous. Heaven is about to respond in a way that proves your battle was never designed to be won by human strength in the first place. When God gives an answer, he gives it in such a way that no one else can take credit. He answers in ways that surprise you, humble you, and elevate your faith. He answers in ways that reveal his sovereignty and silence your doubts. The situations you could not change with months of effort can shift in a single moment of divine involvement. When God decides to move, timelines collapse, obstacles dissolve, and what once seemed distant becomes immediate. Tonight, God is aligning himself with your weakness. Do not despise your exhaustion. It is the doorway through which divine help enters. Your inability does not threaten God, it invites him. Your confusion does not limit him, it draws him near. The answer you have been searching for is not beyond reach, it is simply beyond human strength. And now that your strength has reached its limit, the answer you have been waiting for is ready to be revealed. Tonight, God steps into your weakness with his strength, into your confusion with his clarity, and into your impossibility with his power. Tonight, divine answers begin where human ability ends. There are seasons in a person's life where confusion settles like a thick fog, making even the simplest decisions feel overwhelming. You look ahead and the path seems blurred. You look behind and nothing seems to make sense. You pray, yet you still feel directionless. You try to discern God's will, but it seems like everything around you contradicts what you believe He promised. These moments are not signs that God has abandoned you. They are simply indicators that you are transitioning into a new spiritual season. Confusion is often the enemy's last attempt to weaken your resolve before clarity breaks forth. The darker the night feels, the closer you are to the dawn of divine direction. When confusion lingers, it affects more than your decisions. It affects your confidence, your joy, and even your identity. You begin to question whether you heard God correctly. You question whether you made the right choices. You question whether your prayers are working. But confusion is not a permanent state for a child of God. It is a temporary cloud that cannot withstand the light of divine revelation. The Spirit of God was never given to confuse you. He was given to guide you into truth. And when the Spirit of truth steps in, every shadow disappears. There are times when God allows confusion to run its course, not to torment you, but to detach you from your reliance on human reasoning. Many people try to navigate spiritual seasons with natural logic, and logic has its place, but logic cannot interpret spiritual instructions. Logic cannot unlock divine timing. Logic cannot decode God's prophetic blueprint for your life. When you depend too much on your own understanding, confusion becomes inevitable, because your mind was never designed to guide you through spiritual territory. Only the Spirit can do that. So God allows your own wisdom to tire out, your own strategies to fail, and your own plans to collapse, not as punishment, but as preparation for greater clarity. When your season of confusion ends, it ends suddenly. God does not gradually reveal direction. He speaks in moments that shift everything at once. One word from God can untangle years of questions. One encounter can realign your destiny. One divine instruction can silence every voice that has tormented your peace. When clarity comes, it brings a sense of rest you cannot manufacture. It brings a knowing deep within your spirit that no circumstance can shake. It brings an inner confidence that God has gone ahead of you and set things in order. Tonight marks the end of spiritual confusion in your life. The same God who hovered over the chaotic, formless earth in the beginning and brought order is the same God who is hovering over your life right now. He does not fear the chaos you feel. He transforms it. He does not avoid the confusion around you. He speaks into it. And when He speaks, everything must align. Confusion cannot survive where the voice of God is present. The questions that overwhelmed you yesterday will bow to divine clarity tonight. The uncertainties that drained your strength will be replaced by direction. The fog that clouded your mind will lift supernaturally. You are not stepping into a season where you will guess your way through life. You are stepping into a season where God will guide you with precision. You will hear Him more clearly. You will sense His leading more accurately. You will know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. No more wandering, no more guessing, no more spiritual frustration. Tonight, the Spirit of God is lighting your path. Your season of confusion has an expiry date, and that date is now. What once felt unclear will become undeniable. What once felt overwhelming will become manageable. What once felt confusing will become a testimony of how God brings clarity to those who seek Him. Tonight, your steps are being ordered, your mind is being aligned, and your future is becoming clear. There is something powerful about a heart that is genuinely desperate for God. Desperation is not weakness. It is proof that you recognize your life cannot function correctly without divine intervention. Heaven responds to many things: faith, obedience, worship, but there is a unique speed with which heaven responds to sincere desperation. When a person reaches the point where they say, Lord, I have no plan B. If you don't help me, no one can. It touches the heart of God in a profound way. Desperate faith moves spiritual atmospheres because it carries humility, hunger, and surrender. It is the kind of faith that refuses to be casual, refuses to be silent, and refuses to quit. Many people pray with words, but only a few pray with desperation. There is a difference between saying a prayer and releasing a cry. A prayer comes from your lips, a cry comes from your spirit. A prayer can be routine, a cry is born from burden. A prayer can be intellectual, a cry is spiritual. A cry is what blind Bartimaeus released when he shouted, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. People tried to silence him, but desperation amplifies your voice beyond human control. God hears prayers, but he reacts to cries. Desperation breaks protocol. Desperation bends the attention of heaven. The reason God honors desperate faith is because desperation reveals sincerity. It strips away pride, removes pretense, and exposes the real posture of your heart. When you are desperate, you stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop praying to impress, you stop carrying burdens silently. Desperation pushes you into authenticity, and authenticity attracts God. A sincere heart is irresistible to him. Many answers delay, not because God is unwilling to respond, but because the person praying is divided, half depending on God and half depending on other alternatives. When your heart becomes singular, when your faith becomes focused, when your trust shifts entirely to God, that is when heaven releases answers with speed. Desperation does not mean anxiety. It means hunger. It means longing. It means an intense desire for God's involvement. It means you have reached the point where you realize life cannot continue the same way. And often it is in these moments that the greatest answers come. The woman with the issue of blood did not touch Jesus casually. She pressed to the crowd because her desperation gave her strength she did not naturally have. Desperation gives you spiritual boldness. It removes hesitation. It empowers you to reach for what others would have abandoned. Tonight is a night where your desperation will become the gateway for divine answers. Every tear you have cried in secret, every sleepless night, every prayer you whispered when no one else knew you were breaking, every moment you ask God, when will things change? None of it has been ignored. Desperation records your hunger before God. He has been watching your persistence. He has been observing your faithfulness. He has been listening to the silent cries of your heart. And tonight, the God who honors desperate faith is rising to respond to you. There are moments in the realm of the spirit where heaven releases answers, not because of long prayers, but because of deep sincerity. One sincere cry can achieve what hours of empty words cannot. The kind of prayer that shifts seasons is not always long. It is always honest. It is always desperate. It is always real. When you pray tonight, your words will not rise as mere speech. They will rise as incense, carrying the fragrance of hunger, and answers will come. Heaven cannot resist a desperate seeker. When your heart is burning, heaven pays attention. When your spirit is reaching, heaven moves toward you. Tonight, your desperation is about to collide with God's mercy. And when desperation meets mercy, answers manifest. The God who sees your heart, who hears your cry, and who honors your persistence will not let tonight pass without responding. Your desperate faith has touched heaven, and heaven will respond. Tonight will mark the moment where your cry activated a divine answer that changes everything. There are realms in the spirit where answers do not require long processes, extended seasons, or complicated journeys. These are realms where God steps into time with such power that the natural order bends before his will. In these moments, what should take months unfolds in minutes. What seemed delayed becomes sudden, and what appeared impossible becomes effortless. This is the realm of instant intervention. Not because God is rushing, but because God is responding according to divine urgency. When heaven decides that a matter must be settled, earth cannot resist. Tonight, you are stepping into that realm where God intervenes without hesitation, without delay, without obstruction. Instant intervention is not random. It happens when situations reach spiritual maturity. Just like fruit eventually reaches its time of ripening, there are issues in your life that have reached the moment where heaven determines enough is enough. When God says enough, every force holding you back must release you. Every delay collapses, every barrier breaks, every resistance crumbles. God intervenes in a way that leaves no doubt about his hand. There is a difference between gradual deliverance and sudden deliverance. Gradual deliverance develops your faith. Sudden deliverance displays his power. And there are nights when God chooses to display his power in undeniable, immediate ways. Sometimes you pray for months and nothing seems to shift. And then suddenly, without warning, God moves. This suddenness is proof that God was never slow. He was preparing the right moment. He waited until your heart was ready, until the atmosphere aligned, until the enemy overplayed his hand, and until the testimony would bring him maximum glory. When those conditions align, heaven releases responses with speed that human logic cannot interpret. The intervention may look sudden to you, but it was scheduled by God long before the problem began. Instant intervention is a language of God. He speaks through miracles by showing that he does not need time to act. He only needs willingness. The same God who opened the Red Sea in a moment, who shut the mouths of lions instantly, who broke chains off Paul and Silas in the middle of the night, who healed blind eyes instantly, who raised the dead with a single command. This same God still intervenes instantly, and tonight he is about to release that same dimension into your life. What took years to break you will take moments for him to fix. What was impossible for men will be simple for him. There is something powerful about the nights when God intervenes suddenly. These nights are divine appointments. Heaven leans toward the earth. Angels are dispatched with urgency. The Spirit of God moves with fire. Answers descend like lightning. Burdens lift without explanation. Doors open without knocking. Chains fall without force. The atmosphere shifts and you can feel it. Something supernatural begins to unfold. It is not emotional excitement. It is spiritual activation. Heaven is touching earth and earth is responding. Tonight carries that energy. You may have walked into this moment weary, discouraged, or unsure, but you are walking into a realm where instant intervention is possible, accessible, and divinely orchestrated. God is not limited by the complexity of your problem. He is not intimidated by the layers of your struggle. He is not threatened by the timeline that has exhausted you. He is the God who moves suddenly, and tonight he is choosing to move on your behalf. Expect the unexpected. Expect sudden clarity. Expect sudden healing. Expect sudden breakthrough. Expect sudden direction. Expect sudden peace. Expect sudden answers. The spiritual realm is open. The atmosphere is active. Heaven is ready. And what you thought would take years, God will settle in moments. Tonight is not a night of waiting. It is a night of receiving, a night of divine demonstration, a night where God shows you that he is not slow. He is strategic. And now the strategy of heaven is manifesting as instant intervention in your life. Every battle in a believer's life has a beginning, but it also has an ending. No warfare lasts forever. No storm remains permanent. No opposition is eternal. The challenge is that when you are in the middle of the fight, it feels endless. You begin to wonder if the struggle will ever lift, if the tears will ever dry, if the pressure will ever break, if the night will ever give way to dawn. But heaven does not design battles to last indefinitely. Every challenge, every oppression, every spiritual heaviness, every delay, every cycle of frustration has an assigned expiry date. And when that date arrives, no power of darkness can extend it. The one who began your journey is the same one who determines when your battles must end. Sometimes the enemy fights you with such intensity that he tries to convince you this is how your life will always be: stuck, weary, confused, and limited. But that is a lie. The enemy does not get to determine the final chapter of your story. He does not have the authority to write your future. His attacks are temporary, his strategies are limited, and his influence is conditional. The moment God declares this battle is over, everything opposing you must bow. The spiritual battles you have been facing have been real, but they have not been permanent. The delay you have endured has been painful, but it has not been indefinite. You have cried, you have prayed, you have stood your ground, and heaven has taken note. There comes a moment when the weight of your endurance accumulates before God, and he rises as a mighty warrior to declare victory on your behalf. Often, the intensity of the battle increases right before its expiration. Just like the night is darkest before dawn, many spiritual battles rage most violently just before God brings them to an end. This is why some people feel overwhelmed right before breakthrough, confused right before clarity, attacked right before elevation, discouraged right before open doors. The enemy senses that heaven is about to intervene, and he tries to exhaust you so you won't perceive the moment of victory. But tonight, God is stepping in with authority. He is declaring over your life that the warfare that once intimidated you is about to collapse. The season of pressure is shifting. The atmosphere is changing. What was heavy is lifting. The battle that has circled your life for years is reaching its divine conclusion. There are times when God lets you fight so that you grow, but there are also times when God fights for you so that you win. Tonight is the latter. Tonight is the moment where God says, stand still and see my salvation. Every battle that threatened your peace, your family, your health, your destiny, your progress is being confronted by the power of God. He is not negotiating with the enemy. He is issuing a decree. When God decrees the end of a battle, it ends permanently. Chains break without repair. Cycles shatter without return. Doors that were blocked become open pathways. Walls that resisted you crumble at his command. You are stepping into a season where what once fought you will no longer have the strength to rise against you. The fear that tormented you will lose its voice. The confusion that clouded your path will lose its influence. The delays that frustrated your journey will lose their grip. The tears that accompanied your nights will transform into testimonies. God is not offering temporary relief. He is establishing a permanent shift. When God ends a battle, he doesn't just silence the enemy, he removes his hold. Tonight marks the divine expiry date of long-standing battles in your life. Heaven has issued a verdict in your favor. The spiritual resistance is breaking. The cycles are ending. The chains are dissolving. The limitations are lifting. You will not return to the battlefield you are leaving tonight. Your victory is not a prophecy, it is a manifestation. And from this night forward, the battles that once defined you will become the testimonies that elevate you. Tonight is not an ordinary night. It is a night marked in the spirit, sealed by heaven and orchestrated by God for answers, clarity, intervention, and victory. Everything that has been spoken, every truth that has been declared, every revelation that has been released has been preparing your heart for one thing: divine response. Tonight, the God who sees, the God who hears, and the God who answers has leaned toward your destiny. You are not leaving this moment the same way you came. Something has shifted. Something has broken. Something has opened. Heaven has spoken over your life. And once God speaks, no power can silence his voice. No force can reverse his word. And no opposition can stand against what he has decreed. This is the night where the silence ends, where confusion lifts, where battles expire, where weakness becomes strength, where desperation becomes access, and where the supernatural becomes tangible. Every prayer you prayed in private, every tear you hid from the world, every burden you carried alone, heaven has acknowledged them. God has gathered your cries like incense and responded with power. Tonight is not the beginning of answers. It is the manifestation of answers that have been forming long before you realized it. What seemed delayed was being prepared. What seemed silent was being aligned. What seemed denied was being perfected. The God who moves suddenly has stepped into your story. He has chosen this moment to rewrite what the enemy tried to corrupt, to restore what life tried to steal, and to revive what pain tried to bury. You are stepping out of this atmosphere with a new mantle of clarity, a new measure of strength, a new dimension of discernment, and a new confidence that the one who called you has not forgotten you. Your season of wandering ends here. Your season of guessing ends here. Your season of losing, struggling, and questioning ends here. Tonight, God has given you an answer, and not just any answer, but the kind of answer that shifts destinies, opens doors, breaks chains, and proves that He is still the God who intervenes. Hold this moment in your spirit. God, what God has released. Walk with the assurance that heaven has spoken. And as you step into tomorrow, do not walk as someone who is uncertain. Walk as someone who has received divine instruction. Walk as someone who carries God's voice within them. Walk as someone who has encountered the God who answers. Your breakthroughs will confirm it. Your peace will confirm it. Your testimony will confirm it. Tonight, the God of answers has answered you. And from this moment forward, may your life become the evidence that when God speaks, everything changes. Amen.